Hello, YouTube. Sir Dragon X here. Have you ever wondered about the intricacies of buying a house here in Mexico? Well, I brought a real estate team in so they could explain to you all the ins and outs of purchasing a house here in Mexico. In the video coming up next. Hello, everybody. I have here my realtor who was going to sell my house, but of course I told everybody that we decided to stay here in San Miguel. But the reason why I'm here today is I think that we should have a little bit of a discussion about realty here in San Miguel specifically, but realty here in Mexico. I have here David Stevens.
Hello.
And Rosie.
Rosie Guerrero.
Guerrero. They're both from CDR Realty here in San Miguel de Allende. And I also know that a lot of my audience has been asking for contact information about realtors here in San Miguel de Allende. Why don't you tell us, David, a little bit about yourself, and Rosie, a little bit, introduce yourselves to my audience,
okay.
And but a little bit about your experience. Actually, David's from the United States, and he came here and got into the realty business, but he's also been related to San Miguel de Allende since he was a little kid, I believe.
Since I was 30.
30.
My mother moved here when I was 30, yeah.
And Rosie is from here. Was born there.
I was born here. I grew up in San Antonio. Everybody knows that. That colonia. So, yeah.
So, let's get into, David. Just introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia originally. Grew up and worked in Georgia all my life. I got into the realty business in Georgia in 1991 and did it. I primarily did real estate in Athens, Georgia, which is an hour from Atlanta, university town, and was there for 20 years and moved back towards North Atlanta and did real estate there for 5 years, and then decided to make the move to come down here. So came down here full time, sold everything in 2017, and I decided to get back in the real estate business down here. So here we are, and it's been great. I love it here. My mother moved down here in 1988, and so I've been coming once or twice a year for ever since then, and it's just been a second home to me. And it's so easy to meet friends here. There's a lot of community here, and small town feel. Great expat community though, and the charm of San Miguel is the local people. The local people are so accommodating and so cultural with all their festivities. A lot of festivities.
A lot of fireworks too.
Yeah, a lot of they like their noise down here. So anyways, that's it in a nutshell. I'm with CDR Realty. We're a Forbes affiliate, Forbes International Properties, and we specialize in higher end homes, but frankly, I'll help anybody from 180,000 all the way up to 5 or 6 million. And the market for the lower end property is getting better because we have younger people working remotely via Zoom that enables them to do that. And so that's a growing part of our business as well. It's just not retirees. It's all generations.
And Rosie, a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born here. And then in San Antonio, my dad was an artesano. He used to do all this, like travel to the border and sell our artesania that we have here. We have, mirrors and talavera and all this stuff. So, yeah. And I mean, I grew up in San Antonio. Then I went to the States a little bit. I left my kids there in Texas, Dallas. And now I'm back and trying to do this. And David is trying to help me. So, yeah, I'm just learning. And I mean, this business is really, really beautiful. You can see all the architecture in the houses. It's a lot of like different, like modern or all kind of houses you can imagine. And really, really affordable and close to downtown. So, yeah.
And let me ask you guys, both of you, actually, not just David, but one of the things that we see here in Mexico, we have a large expat population that's starting to, or a lot of people from Canada, all over the world. Actually, San Miguel gets people from all over the world. We've met Australians
yeah.
here and from all over the world. But one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you in specific is realty here in Mexico. One of the things that I've been told and actually made aware of,
Right.
you don't need a real estate license here in Mexico to practice real estate. So one of the reasons why I brought you here is so that you could maybe explain what to look for. Now, of course, I would really recommend CDR Realty here in San Miguel de Allende, but let's say someone else is moving to Cancun or Merida or all these other places.
Right.
What are the things that you really need to look for when you're looking for property? Even go into, like, for example, in Merida, I'm very aware that a lot of times there's these scams that go on, these preventa scams where they'll take the money and run, or they'll try to sell you land that's what's known as ejido land here, those types of things. So how do you prevent those kinds of scams when you're looking for a piece of property? My first is find a realtor. And the second is, what is it that we should look for when looking for a realtor? Because my next door neighbor can sell realty.
Sure. I would go with a realtor who's got an association with an established worldwide company. CDR is a Forbes affiliate, but you have the Coldwell Bankers who are international. You have Century 21, you have Keller Williams, you have Remax. All the big names are down here. And most of the agents in those companies have gone through the certification process, which we call AMPI, AMPI, which is kind of like your, like in Georgia, it's the Georgia Association of Realtors or the National Association of Realtors. We're getting this AMPI certification together for agents, and it's really, it's a course that's not as intense as the ones in the States, but it gives you a good background and a good foundation. And it's also creating an ethical standard so that we can govern ourselves and not have these renegade, garage or gardener realtors out there trying to, settle or sell houses. And you got to be careful with the process once you get into the money part. We'll just wire the money to the lawyer, whatever. Well, we use an escrow company. It's in the States, and it's very regulated. So the fly-by-night realtor they might have some contacts, but really I would go with a big name company more every time because they have the resources, the staff, the notaries, notarios, and the lawyers, and the escrow companies set up and everything. And most of them are very experienced, years of experience, background here in Mexico. So we know how things go, and it's not too much different than the States, but the paperwork's different and some of the processes are different. So basically, that's it for that part.
And then now, of course, I know, David, you were a realtor in the United States, and then somebody may say, well, you were a realtor in the United States, but now you're in Mexico. But I think one of the things that I wanted to stress is, or you hear Keller Williams or Century 21, those are American companies, or they're international.
Yeah.
But a lot of those companies bring in realtors like you that have years and years of experience selling houses. It's not just about the process in Mexico. It's also about how to stage a house, how to do all of these things that maybe a realtor locally may not know how to do.
Right.
Or what to look for in a neighborhood or those types of things. And also, I think the big thing is that those big name companies make sure that their realtors, whether they be coming from the United States or Rosie that lives here in San Miguel de Allende, they know the area, how to do transactions. For example, you were talking about AMPI.
Right.
Now, does AMPI exist all over Mexico, or?
It's growing. We got in the state of Guanajuato. San Miguel is located in the state of Guanajuato. It's got a pretty good presence here in San Miguel and in Guanajuato City. and it's spidering out. Parts of Mexico City have it. San Luis Potosí, some of the bigger cities are getting AMPI certified agents together. And we actually have a centralized MLS system within that AMPI where you have a director, you have a board, and all that. So it's getting pretty organized compared to what it was just 7 years ago.
And then, so AMPI runs like an MLS system. For those of you that it's called multiple listing service in the United States, that were equivalent. So you as a realtor, for example, you work for CDR, but for example, I don't know, I guess Keller Williams is selling a house right across the street. So you guys kind of work like you do in the United States, where you can go to the listing. So anybody that's a member of AMPI can get into this multiple listing service. So even though they contract you, you may be showing them a house from Keller Williams.
Sure.
So that works the same as anywhere else.
Yeah, and actually it's a small community compared to large cities, and everybody's anxious to work with everybody. The goal is to get the house sold. And whether you split it with another agent or you do it yourself, it doesn't matter. We do agent open houses once a week, where all the AMPI agents who have new listings can hold an open house for all the other agents to come and promote their property. And it's a great way to learn the inventory and to also just meet all the other agents and to work with them.
And you even had an open house at this house, didn't you?
We did.
Unfortunately, we decided to stay here. The other thing that I wanted to go into, David, is one of the biggest questions that everybody has when buying a house here in Mexico is, what are the mortgage rates like? How do I get a mortgage in Mexico? That's one of the things that I have to address a lot of times. Can you kind of go over how mortgages work here in Mexico, number one, and what is the actual traditional way of buying a house here in Mexico compared to the United States, being that you come from the United States?
Actually, 99% of the transactions down here are cash transactions. I can tell you a little bit about mortgages. They've only really been around for a couple of years here. There's a couple of the banks are starting to get into it. I think I know personally of probably 5 mortgages that closed this last year, so it's not many. And the rates are 9.5 to 11. The down payment is 50%, and they have minimum loan values. I think you can't get a mortgage for less than $300,000. And it's a process. It's it's like pulling teeth. They ask for documents 2 or 3 times over. It takes about 3 or 4 months to close one. And I have not personally done one. A couple agents in our company have, and most people just pay cash. That's a whole nother story, but it's much better, much simpler transaction to do that.
The reason why I bring this up, I know that it's very difficult and high mortgage rates and all of that stuff. One of the things that I do is I do suggest renting before to make sure this is where you want to settle down. Now, we didn't do that. We just went ahead and bought a house in San Miguel de Allende because we fell in love with it. But there are real estate agencies that, now yours, I don't believe you said do property management.
Do property management.
But there are real estate agencies that do that too.
Mm-hmm. Several, yeah.
So would it be advisable if someone's going to come and rent, maybe not necessarily Airbnb, but long-term
We just had a client right now that came from Texas. And he stayed here 2 weeks. And we drive him everywhere to see houses, different range of prices,
areas, sure.
different areas. And he fell in love with this place, and he's looking up to.
Yeah, if you've never
2 weeks for him to see everything.
If you've never been here before, it's a brand new place. You got to get the lay of the land. I would suggest, a 3 to 6 month rental just to learn the neighborhoods and the terrain and the price points and all that. Some people come down here and after 3 days they're putting down contracts on the house, and they just.
Well, that's what we did. But actually, we put a contract down on a house, one of these other neighborhoods, and we were promised a exit to the pool, and that didn't happen when we came for our 8-month revision of the construction,
Right.
and we backed out, and believe it or not, we got our money back because in most of these pre-sales, you don't get your money back.
Right.
But we did get our money back, and then we ended up coming here to this neighborhood, and we fell in love with this house. So we walked away 8 months later with a different one. But the other thing that I wanted to get into is that I know that everybody talks about San Miguel being very expensive. Now, I just came from Monterrey, Mexico, which is probably more expensive.
Yeah.
And I see what I see in Mexico from all the places that I've been to is that, yes, here in San Miguel, we have a city market, which is one of the most exclusive markets. I even talked about this on my last live stream that you can get Kobe beef. You can pay up to $1,000 for a cut of beef. And San Miguel is very well known for the artists that come here. It's kind of like, believe it or not, Santa Fe, New Mexico for Mexico.
Right.
And everybody associates that with being very expensive. And yes, it can be expensive. But one of the things that I've really told my audience is we do have a community here that lives on a budget, that don't have the recourses that somebody that owns $1 million home has.
Right.
So I always say you can live the $1 million lifestyle here and live up on the top of San Miguel in the $6 million house looking over. I even believe someone told me Barbara Streisand has a house here. No, Meryl Streep, I believe, has, and several celebrities from all over Mexico. But one of the things that I always say, and I think mine's a little bit more, our house is a little bit more in the mid-range, but I try to tell people there's all sorts of price points here. I think I even sent somebody to you that you found a condo for him.
Yeah.
It was $100 and some.
Yeah, it's $200,000. Yeah.
$200,000.
So with amazing view.
With an amazing view.
Yeah.
So there's price points. Can you kind of go into that? That it's not all about, and I actually believe it here in this neighborhood. There's several neighborhoods in this whole resort area that are affordable. And one of the things that we did when we bought this house is I just went ahead and took the hit on my 401k and said, you know what? Yes, I had to pay the taxes, but my property evaluation in 5 years, there's no way that I would have gotten that in the United States.
Right.
So what I advise people to do is think about buying once you figure out where you want to be. But everybody looks at me and says, yeah, but San Miguel is it's out of the question because you can't afford the house in San Miguel de Allende. But I think the opposite is true. So can you kind of go into that and also even go into it for those of people that maybe could buy a mid-range house? For example, this house cost me less than what I paid for a house in Texas.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, it's we can, if you're below 200,000, you're probably looking at a condo, and there's a ton of those in different areas of town. They're sprouting up everywhere. And then once you get over 200, we've got a listing that's 250. It's a brand new 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, I think.
Yeah.
Walkable to town. And so you can run the gamut on the lower end, or you step it up to 350, 400, up to 600, 800. Just depends on your comfort level. But it's advantageous to buy because of the appreciation factor is so rapid. And you can rent, but you're always going to have that rental note every month. If you're on a fixed income, that makes a big difference. Whereas if you buy and get that out of the way, then you just have living expenses. And San Miguel for the medium price to high end restaurants is still about 30% less than the States. And the way the prices are in the States right now is probably more than that. But you can live comfortably for a lot less than that per month. You have local tiendas and restaurants and, do the Mexican culture thing and get by very, very inexpensively. So
In Texas. pay taxes.
And
Oh, the tax.
I was just going to say that right now.
Property.
The property. Well, there's another secret to this.
And this is the biggest secret. The property taxes here are a fraction of the U.S. I mean, most people, I'm from Georgia, but a lot of people from Texas and California that I talk to, they're paying $12,000-$15,000 a year on their house. And down here, Ernie's got in my opinion, almost a $500,000 house, and he's paying what, $300 a month?
$300 a year.
Excuse me, a year. So taxes are incredibly low. Electricity, because all the houses have open natural lighting for the most part. Electricity bills are very low, and the water bills are very low. So once you buy your house, the cost of living is hardly anything compared to the States.
And because everything is walkable, so you really don't need a car. A lot of people has those motorcycles to be just around because, I mean, a big car is like a waste of gas to just walk like, I don't know, 15 minutes to the store, to wherever you want to go. And I mean, it's really, really close to everything.
And to stress property valuations, David was saying I have a $500,000 home, but that's not what we paid for our house. No. Actually, we were just discussing this before. I was amazed at the property valuations. What I've gained in appreciation in this property is almost double what I paid. Now I paid, of course, 5 years ago. Inflation's a little bit different, but you can get an idea of my property evaluating almost double in 5 years. I have never seen that happen in Texas. Not only that, I lived in Texas, and I can attest to the fact that I was almost at $11,000 a year in property taxes. Right. So I was paying $1,000 a month to live in my house that I outright owned. And here, if you take $300 a month and divide it by 12, I'm not very good at math, but it's $100 or something. That's less than $100.
Yeah,
this client that we have, the one is looking for a house here. We saw a house, and he says that his house is almost exactly the same size and like beautiful house, and he's gonna pay half of that price of the house in Texas.
I really want to thank you guys for coming here. Do you have anything else to add that might be some tips, tricks in finding a realtor? I am going to place a link to their realty in the description of this video, and I'm also going to put their contact information.
Let me say one thing. A lot of people come down here and say, how do I qualify to buy a house? Well, you can buy a house down here on a tourist visa. So you don't really need to be a temporary resident or a permanent resident or nationality. You can buy as an American, Canadian, Australian, whatever. You can buy a house just with your passport and your tourist visa. And then once you get here, then you might want to, pursue temporary residency or permanent residency, which is not a big deal.
And there are people that purchase houses, and actually that was a good thing that you went into that, David, because I should have gone into that. But there are people that purchase kind of houses like vacation homes, so they don't really need residency because they come here for 3 months out of the year, and even though we did have a hiccup last year with getting 180 days, even then they come 6 months out of the year, but they say, hey, I own a house here. They're not doing back-to-back entries. So usually immigration lets them in. Right. And then also another thing to note, but the house value is very high. I think it's at $580,000. It might be going up next year. But you can also qualify for residency owning a house here. So that's another path to residency. Not a very common path, but it is a path to residency because I just did a video about how the residency qualifications are going to be going up a lot next year, 20%, because the minimum wage just went up 20%. So that if you do have, I think it's at 500,000 right now or something like that for temporary or for residency.
I think,
or it's 470 something. But you buy a $500,000 home, you show that you can qualify for residency. Also, you made a good point that now we're a little bit different here in San Miguel. In like Cancun, if they want to own property on the beach, they have to have a trust if they're not a Mexican citizen. I believe it's 20 kilometers from the border.
Right. Yes.
But here in San Miguel, you don't run into that problem. So you can buy property without being a
Right.
resident.
Exactly. And it's a fee simple ownership, clear deed and everything. It's not government backed anything. So yeah.
Great. Well, you know what? I want to thank you guys
Well, thank
for
you.
coming on and helping us to educate my audience and the expat community a little bit about real estate. I think it's very important.
And just let the audience know, I have a short little buying guide that I can email anybody that just kind of gives you the ABCs of the process of buying a house and what's involved, the fees involved, closing costs and all that, and documentation requirements. And it's a real quick, easy read if anybody wants that.
And to get that guide, do I put your email address or something in the contact?
Yeah, I'll put my email in your
Okay.
contact stuff.
So if you want that little guide, I'm going to put his email address so that you can email him and he can send you the guide on buying property in Mexico. Thank you very much, David and Rosie,
you.
for
Thank
coming.
you for having us.
All right.
And come on in. It's beautiful, beautiful weather all year
Sunny
round.
San Miguel.
I can vouch for that. It's beautiful weather. Actually, we don't. I always tell people that we don't have air conditioning here in this house, and we've never had an
Other
issue.
houses don't have that.
And that's one thing that's a very different than other areas like Merida, like the Yucatan area, that's very hot. A lot of
yeah.
people don't understand when they go. You can live here real cheap, but then they see their electricity bill
Yeah.
from running their air conditioner.
Not here.
Not here.
That's a big selling factor in San Miguel is the perfect weather. About 300 days, 320 days a year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And
Awesome.
a lot of party.
Thank you very much for your help. And anybody, if you're interested and you want to come to San Miguel de Allende, you want to see houses, make sure that you contact CDR Realty here in San Miguel de Allende.